territory in southern Ukraine. And Ukraine says it has struck 2 Russian ammunition depots in Luhansk using long-range drones. Andriy Zagorodnyuk was Ukraine's defense minister, now an advisor to its government and chairman of the Center for Defense Strategies. You know better than anybody else the significance of the security guarantees. So if you've got the Europeans doing the bulk of it, with the Americans with air support. Now, the whole point, sir, of a security guarantee is it should be so robust and so impregnable that no one ever tests it. Is that the case?
Yes, that's the case. They have to, thank you, and yeah, you're spot on. So they have to be having the deterrence effect. So the effect from the guarantees has to basically keep the enemy away, or in the case if enemy is not kept away for any whatever reason, they have to have a denial effect, which means that with the force, the enemy should be denied any chance for success. Unfortunately, Europe cannot provide such guarantees because it doesn't have the capabilities enough to protect itself and the other country. Even if they consider, which we always discuss with them, that with the European leaders, that Ukraine is part of Europe, and as such, protecting Ukraine is protecting Europe, which is on strategic level they absolutely agree with. Still, protecting just Ukraine would be a problem. So unfortunately, that's not realistic.
Does a security guarantee de facto become NATO light in a sense? Well, let me rephrase that. Let me put up, it should have been, does it become de facto Article 5 light? In other words, everybody knows that if they're pushed, they may have to fight themselves. Or are we just talking about supplying of the armaments, the weaponry that you would then use in the fighting?
And that's the question which hasn't been answered yet. And that's where actually the problem is, because potentially they can be Article 5. Potentially they can be something like actually enforced with troops presence. For example, I can remind you that United States guaranteed security of South Korea in 1953, and they kept 2 divisions there. Some presence still there as we speak, though South Korea already bumped up its own security potentials tremendously since that time, and it was working. However, this time when we're hearing is that mostly this is like additional assistance or some enhanced assistance, which may not play the deterrent effect. And in this case, it would be just, just helping out Ukraine, but it will absolutely does not mean that Putin will not attack again. And that's the whole question. Yeah.
So should President Zelensky go one-on-one with Vladimir Putin, even if it's not fully negotiated to the nth degree? Because if you heard my discussion with Jeff Zeleny, there seems to be more, President Trump is much more about, if we build it, it will come. If we say that they're going to get together, they will get together and peace will flow.
Zelensky will never say no to a meeting because he's feeling on the right side. He can give facts during that meeting, whether this is bilateral, trilateral, or multilateral, and Putin is there. We can put the facts on the table. For Putin, it would be much more difficult. So what we think is that Putin will be trying to avoid that by all means, because that meeting will highlight the very uncomfortable truths for Putin, particularly about the war crimes, particularly about destroying cities, villages, etc. So all his claims about whatever he's saying to other sides, and including President Trump and his representatives, would be easily deconstructed by Zelensky during the meeting. So probably he would be avoiding it by all means, Putin.
On the ground, I mean, we get, as you know, our correspondents, Nick Robertson, Nick Payton-Walsh, Clarissa Ward, have been so many times to Ukraine covering the actual fighting in the east. And there is a feeling that Russia has a sort of upper hand. Now, as we come out of a summer and towards an autumn and a winter, the strength of the Ukrainian ability to keep fighting must be questionable. I mean, obviously you can keep going, but Russia does eventually overwhelm, does it not?
No, it won't necessarily overwhelm because they, first of all, they planned much more results during this summer than they're receiving. They have contributed a tremendous amount of resources. They have already 1 million losses and counting. And so that cannot be called success by any reasonable analysis. So more importantly, though, Ukraine is like still existing as a stable political country. We have economy, we have social structure, and administrative structure, and so on. So by all means, I mean that is what the war is about. It's not about Donbass. It's not about several villages. It's about existence of Ukraine. And at the moment, Ukraine exists in its mass,
Right.
and it has a strong government. But let me tell you, this is the question is, it's not like if Ukraine even is struggling with the war, which is the case, of course. It's a very demanding war. There's no alternative like, okay, let's stop it and then we'll have a peace, even if it's a settlement for us. If Ukraine is weak, Putin is not going to settle because he will feel that Ukraine weak. He will move on. That's the whole thing.
Andrei, good to see you, sir. It's always good to talk to you. I'm grateful. Thank you very much.